How you doing, Jim?
Awesome. Glad to be here.
Man, thank you for doing this. You just came back from an awesome hunt in Mexico, I saw.
Yeah, got to hunt deer in Aoudad. It was an incredible place. We got to go to a place where they only take a few Aoudad off the whole property during the year. So it was pretty cool to be able to hunt there.
So you were Aoudad hunting, and what was that deer that you guys were hunting?
It's a weird species. I think it's called like Mikihuahenses or something. I don't know. It's some kind of subspecies of white-tailed deer down there. Smaller body, smaller antlers. It's somewhere between the normal whitetail you see in Texas and a Coues deer.
The one you shot was I could see your shock after you saw it, because you're like, well, they told me they're small, but you kind of went on the lower end of that spectrum.
I did. Well, it was the worst. So I got a really nice Aoudad, but on the deer hunt, I had, I didn't know what this subspecies really looked like. And so we had probably, 40 different deer came into the stand. So I looked over quite a few bucks, and this was the biggest of them that I saw, and I shot it. And I thought that was representative of that particular subspecies. Then I saw my friends that they shot, and I was like, "Oh my gosh, shot a baby!" Oh, it was funny. Really fun.
For those of you that don't know, Jim has a channel called Backfire. Go check it out. It's good stuff. So you do a lot of cartridge comparisons. You do hunts. What do you do over on your channel?
Yeah, it's anything the average person wants to do with guns. And so it ends up being a lot of, hunting rifle kind of stuff, but it's everything. Sometimes I shoot NRL 22, and so I'll show that on there. I'm recording a video today about 8.6 Blackout, whatever just kind of new cool cartridges out, or scope reviews, just whatever the average gun person would be interested in.
I like your comparison videos. You do a very good job at kind of putting all the stats in there, and the kind of the benefits and the pros and cons and all the good stuff. You do a really good job. Plus, you do, I don't know, man, you do a good job. Like I really find myself enticed with your videos, because I'm like, okay, I know this. Why do I keep watching? It's because you do a really good job.
Thank you. Well, I feel the same way about other channels that I watch, that, sometimes it is things that I know, but I just like learning it, hearing different people's perspectives. I want to know everything I possibly can about guns. So
what gets you into YouTube?
Oh, that's quite the story. So I went to law school. During law school, I started a podcast about photography and started teaching online photography classes. It kind of grew to the point that by the time I became a lawyer, it was kind of earning more. And so I was like, okay, I guess I'm a blogger now. So I ran that blog for 5 years. Then I started different online brands about RVs and boating and pets and all different ones. And I would kind of build them up to, pretty good following. And then I would sell the brands. Anyway, then I started a company called Income School, where I taught other people how to build online brands. And that company, we're really fortunate. We built that up to 80 employees. And then I sold out of that company. And we had created Backfire kind of as a proof of concept, just showing that, in one day a week, you can create an online presence anyway. And so when I sold my company, I kept Backfire. And I just decided, okay, well, maybe this will be my next thing, and I'll kind of build this up from now. So it's kind of a weird story, but that's kind of where I end up. But even my close friends have no idea what I do for work. They're like, dude, I don't know. Like, one week you're making websites about pets. The next week you're a podcaster about RVs. I don't know. I just like doing stuff online.
That's awesome. So do you practice law?
No. I haven't since I graduated law school. Yeah. It was an expensive wall decoration, let me tell you that, law school.
Well, that's cool. You should call yourself, give yourself a, I don't know, some kind of cool lawyer name on YouTube,
Yeah. I don't know what that would be, but
Yeah, I don't know. I
sounds
don't
great.
either.
Matlock.
I went to school for computer programming, and I started a construction company so I could pay for school, and then that's it. I ended up dropping out of school because I had too much work doing construction that I ended up quitting school and never went back. Built that into a pretty big company, and then I decided to, too much stress, whatever. Shut it down, and I didn't sell it. Maybe I should have called you. Well, of course I didn't know. I just found out. But I was really afraid I built a really good brand, and I was afraid somebody's going to take it. I was a home builder. I was afraid somebody's going to take that and just take a lot of people's money, and I didn't want to be associated with that in any way. So
Yep,
said,
that's tough.
It's not worth it, so I just shut it down.
Yep.
But yeah, it's funny how kind of what leads us to different paths down in life. It's just you plan something and then it's just hardly ever works that way.
Yeah, I can't even have a 1-year goal. Who knows what's going to happen a year from now? Who knows? Just trying each day, just make the best videos I can and get them out there. I really don't know how long gun channels on YouTube will even exist. And so just making the most of it while we have the opportunity. We were talking a little bit before we recorded. I bet I've talked to 25 different, bigger gun channel owners over the last couple months, and your channel is the only one I know of that didn't get a strike the week of SHOT Show. It's crazy, and I don't want to spend this interview complaining about things, but it's important for the audience to know, because if we don't speak up against YouTube, they're just going to shut down our speech. Anyway, I got a strike for 2 seconds in the video of removing a factory suppressor. That does not violate their rule. And I'm saying that like as an attorney, like reading their rules, it just flatly does not violate the rule. It says you can't show a homemade suppressor, but a factory suppressor is fine. And so anyway, and it says you can't add an accessory. This was 2 seconds of removing. Anyway, it's just frustrating. And I've heard that story from over 20 different channel owners over the last month that got a strike, and you look into it and it's like, well, you just didn't break the rule. So it seems pretty obvious that they're trying to sweep us out.
I've heard of 3 of them, and all 3 were because of suppressors. It was you, 22 Plinkster, and Polinar Tactical. All 3 of you had to do with suppressors.
It says specifically in the rules that you can show suppressors. They just can't be homemade. This was a Dead Air Nomad. I didn't make it at home. It's really frustrating. Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know, man. It's it's you got to tiptoe around everything we do, and I guess people a lot of times don't understand. Like I on my YouTube channel, my Eric Ortina channel, I call rifles, I call them boomsticks. The pointy things on the end of the cartridge. See, I don't even want to say it here. The pointy thing that goes here, I call them freedom seeds, and things of that nature, because I did an experiment on my channel where I wanted to know if it was what I showed or what I said, because I figured what you say is easier to pick up on than what you show. So I did an entire video where I'm watering plants outside, and I'm like, I'm going to take my AR-15 and I'm going to water these plants and things of that nature. And then I had a sprinkler, and I call that my my machine gun, And then I had round bales. You know what round bales are? With hay?
Yeah.
And I call those, I said, oh, check out all the revolvers that I have. And anyway, it got demonetized.
Really?
And, yeah.
That's interesting.
It is.
That's interesting. Yeah.
I wanted to see immediately. It never even, how during the initial deal where it does the checks, it immediately got demonetized. And
such mess. The censorship has just run amok.
So I knew it had to do with what I said a lot, So that's why I had to change how I say things. But yeah, whatever. So anyway, what else you got going on? Let's not complain about YouTube too much.
Well, I guess a couple new cartridges that I'm working with is one, I've been doing a lot of shooting with the 7PRC. I'm definitely interested in that one. That one's been really fun to play with. And the other is 8.6 Blackout that I think it's really cool. I don't know how really functional it really is, or it fits a small niche, I think, in the market, but it's really cool. If I were in Texas like you and I were hog hunting all the time, oh, baby, hand me the 8.6 Blackout. That thing is sweet. But, I live in southern Utah. If you're kind of a Western hunter, maybe it has a little bit of a limited application.
So tell me about the 8.6 Blackout. What is that, like a 32, 33? What is it?
Yeah, okay. So the kind of the provenance getting to it. So we had the 223, same thing as in your AR-15, and we made the 300 Blackout, right? Let's chuck a big bullet in that, right? This is kind of the same thing, but we're starting with a 6.5 Creedmoor case and bumping back the shoulder, trimming it short, and then putting in a 338 caliber bullet on there. And so it's designed to work with very short barrels because you got a very small powder column there. Mm-hmm. And it has a 1 in 3 twist on it. 1 in 3.
Wow.
And so it's spinning at 500,000 RPM. And so their claim anyway is that it's, adding the rotational energy to do more damage, in ballistics gel and an animal when you're hunting, and not just the speed. And so it's an interesting cartridge. I think if you want a very short barrel and you're hunting something like hogs at shorter distances, it's pretty cool. But yeah, again, limited application, I think.
So a 6.5 Creedmoor case, shortened, the shoulder pushed back and shortened. That sounds like a 6.5 by 47 case.
Yeah, except this one's got a 338 caliber bullet on it.
No, I understand, but I don't know why they didn't just start with a 6.5 47 case because it's already done. You don't have to. You know what I mean? But
yeah, I think Hornady is likely to jump in on this one, and so my guess is just ease of manufacturing. If we're starting with something that they're already making huge lines of. Yeah.
Well, that's see, I'm not much into subsonics, therefore I don't have any suppressors on my channel. Because what I do, it's long range shooting, right? So we suppressors are not even allowed in our game, but I do use them. They're amazing. I love hunting with suppressors, especially like you said, hogs. You're driving around and you see the hogs. You just grab grab my AR and just go to town. You know what I mean?
Yeah, absolutely.
Don't need hearing protection or anything. Just I used to have a 6.5 Grando, and now I did a 6 Arc just to see what all the fuss is about. But it's fun. Hunting is fun.
Yeah, I don't do that much with AR platform stuff. I'm more into the long guns, the hunting rifles. But it's cool, and I think a lot of that has to do with where I live for hunting. People are hunting more and more and more with AR platform rifles, in where there's more vegetation, I guess, is what I'd say, where you don't necessarily need to be taking real long shots and where you maybe aren't going to be schlepping a gun around the mountains all week.
Yeah. So let's talk about that PRC because it's I was talking to Ron Spomer about this, and I'm like, there is so much overlap. Like, I know people get excited about this new cartridge, but it's only doing something that it's already been done for like 100 years. So what interests you about this new cartridge?
Well, your point is a good one. If you have a 7 mag and you go buy a 7 PRC, the elk is going to die the exact same way. There's not much there. But it would be the same thing to me as saying, I have a 2015 truck. I mean, we get a LED headlights going up to the 2020 truck. Like, who cares, right? And so that's fine. But if we're talking about if we just enjoy all the ballistics and everything and you want to take every single advantage of the newest and greatest thing, then cool. That's what it is. And so for me, that's kind of where I am. Is I just enjoy all of it. I want to learn every little advantage I can get. So the case anyway, for the 7 PRC, let's say you're coming from, if you have a 7 mag, we're going to get tighter tolerances, right, in our chamber. We're going to have a lot less jump in that bullet before we hit the right rifling. But I will say one thing about that. A lot of this next generation of cartridge that, tighter tolerances on everything, well, in theory, a lot of companies I'm already seeing making 7 PRC, well, they're putting guns out the door and people are having issues with going over pressure because that reamer has to be perfect in order for everything to load. I just followed a thread on Facebook this morning where I saw about 20 different people with a Christensen rifle on 7 PRC that are all going over pressure with factory ammo. And that's not a knock on Christensen. Honestly, that could be any gun manufacturer. But what we often see is, especially in the higher end hunting rifles, they really want to have that match grade chamber. And there's just very little wiggle room on a true match grade chamber. And so a lot of the companies are taking, this newer generation of cartridges of the PRCs, and they're getting a reamer to make it more of a field chamber anyway, because otherwise you just have very little tolerance and it's pretty easy to go over pressure with a very small mistake.
Yeah, especially when they're trying to pump out the performance that warrants somebody to want to go get a new cartridge, right? New rifle. So, yeah, it's a very fine line that they need to walk. And I wonder if they get, like, when a cartridge is released, I wonder if they get, like, the manufacturers, like, a head start on, hey, this is going to hit the market. I would assume they did.
Yeah, they did. Yeah, so it was... They came, I can't remember my months right now to get it straight, but they released the SAMI drawings quietly, Hornady did. It's public. Anybody could go access it. In fact, I accessed it, so I immediately built one and showed it on the channel. But Hornady wasn't talking about it until, I can't remember what show it was later. But it was out for, 3 or 4 months before Hornady actually talked about it. And the purpose of that is put out the SAMI drawings, let manufacturers start playing with it, and then we're going to fully announce it. And often, like with 300 PRC, there are tweaks that are made to, those reamer specs before it's, made public.
Yeah.
Anyway.
Well, that's what I was asking, because, apparently they're not done with the tweaks. And, the 6.5 PRC is, I don't shoot a 6.5 PRC, but what I shoot is what we call the 7 PRCW, which is a 6.5 PRC necked up to 7mm. And if you use 6.5 PRC reamer print, like a SAMI print, it's too tight. You're going to have issues. You're going to have clickers. And so we're having already, the competition shooter, we already moved on to the version 2, which at the 200 line has a 535 diameter versus a 533, which is on the SAMI spec. So we're actually, everybody thinks competition shooters always make everything tighter. No, we want it to work. And in this case, we're actually making it looser than SAMI spec.
Right. And to be clear, like, yes, trying to go to a true match grade chamber, I think if people haven't shot it, they may recognize, it's a lot more problematic than you might think, particularly if you're reloading. Like, there is very, very little forgiveness here. But that's not to say that there isn't an advantage to these. Still, you take a 300 PRC and compare it to a 300 Win Mag, and even if we go to a little bit, of a more field-style chamber, we still have a lot less freebore, a lot less wiggle room than on your 300 PRC compared to your 300 Win Mag. And so there are definite advantages. And then you think, like why? So if you are a reloader and you say, well, I can already load out my 300 Win Mag wherever I want. I don't have to have too much jump. But the factory ammo can't. They've got to stay within SAMI specs, right? And so a significant advantage for the ammo manufacturer is, hey, it makes less of an advantage to reload at this point because there's not that much you can change really on it, right? And so, yeah, there's an advantage there for from the factory standpoint, but also on the load development, because again, there's not as much you can change. You can't load the bullet out a whole lot more than the SAMI spec, because you're going to contact the rifling, right? And so, it just reduces the number of variables you have.
Well, yeah, that is a benefit, and I wonder if they're going to shoot better. You know, that's obviously that's the plan. That's the point of doing all this. But I think factory rifles already shoot pretty good. You know what I mean?
A lot of them do. So if we're talking about hunting rifles, factory rifles, I have a lot of them that I've reviewed on the channel. I mean, way too many. Nobody should have that many hunting rifles. And what I have noticed is on the very bottom end, you know, we're talking about the $350, $450, maybe even $500 rifles. It's a mixed bag that you're going to get. You may get that Ruger American that legitimately, on average, is going to shoot .8. You know, it's shooting really well. And then you get another rifle, maybe the same brand of rifle, and it's just not that good, right? Like, there's just manufacturing tolerances are going to be a lot wider when they're making it that cheap. And so I have definitely seen guns under $500 that shoot, I mean, pie plate at 100 yards. And I try every load, everything. It will not shoot. And then others are great. And so it's just a mixed bag, I feel like, there. From the, $600 to $1,000 range, it's rare that I find something that doesn't shoot. In fact, I'm not sure I can think of an example of one that didn't shoot a 1MOA, that wouldn't consistently shoot 1MOA. Now, some a little bit better than others, but the brand didn't matter that much in that price point in terms of accuracy. Getting into the more expensive, maybe even more exotic stuff, we're spending $2,000 and up for a really premium rifle. I found a lot of those can legitimately become half MOA guns, but not all of them. Some of them, you're spending $3,000 on a rifle. It looks good, but it doesn't shoot any better than your $700 gun either. And so it's definitely, I would say the tiers are important to look at, but I don't know that you can say that you spend more and you shoot better. Kind of, but not really. There are too many examples of better and worse. On my channel, we did what we call the 6.5 Needs More series. And we bought two very cheap rifles, $600 Remington 700s. And one of them shot about 1.25 inches, 1.5 inches MOA. And the other one shot 3.5 MOA at 100 yards. Yikes.
And the serial numbers were only 3 numbers apart. So they were as close to each other as possible. And what we did is we started improving on the rifles. So the one that shot 3.5 MOA, we started, we pillar bedded it. And we glass bedded it. And, and it has a plastic stock. So we did that, and yeah, it helped it. It shot better. We got it down to about 1.5 inches like the other one. And then what else did we do? We did a trigger. The point, we threw it in a chassis, and it just kept getting better and better and better. And then we put one of my tuner brakes on there, and we were able to get it down to about 3/4 MOA, 5/8 MOA. And we were shooting factory ammo this whole time, Burger factory ammo, and then once we had them tuned down to about, I'm gonna say 5/8, 3/4 MOA, we went to Academy and we bought all the 6.5 ammo, a box of every ammo that they had, just whatever we could find on the shelves, and then we did a test like somebody would normally do. It's like test every ammo possible. Guess what? The target ammo shot the best, like better numbers over the chronograph, better groups, and the other stuff was not as good, but some of it was still good enough depending on what you were doing, right? If you're gonna shoot hogs or whatever, well, it's good enough. But there is if anything, that told us that the higher end ammo, it's expensive for a reason.
Yeah,
it shot better.
Yeah, and there are definite differences. You know, that's one issue that the 6.8 Western has faced since it was released, 2 years ago. It's a cool cartridge. It's great. Like, for a hunting application, that's a significant update to a 270. You're shooting much heavier bullets. It's a pretty nice sweet spot balance of everything: recoil, velocity, powder burned, everything. It's a nice sweet spot for a hunter. But Browning and Winchester, you know, Browning, as far as I understand, is really repackaged Winchester ammunition, and the ammo's not good. It just isn't. Sometimes I'll put it in a case, and when you close that bolt, it's you can feel as you're coming down on the brass, and the next one is closes down just fine, and you're like, oh crap. And then you shoot it over a chronograph, and I'm seeing 80 feet per second extreme spread in the same box of ammo. And it's like, well, if this is designed for that longer range hunting, 80 feet per second isn't going to work for that kind of thing. And so, having good ammo makes a big difference. It also sucks for the average shooter because, like, you know, to me and you, I say, hey, got a new gun, I'm going to go try all kinds of different loads. I'm going to go load up a whole bunch of stuff. If you're a reloader, you got a bunch of components. But the average guy who goes and spends $700 on a gun, what, now they're going to go buy 5 boxes of ammo? That's like $300 to get 5 boxes of ammo and to find out which one shoots better. That's half the value of his entire gun. And so, yes, it's awesome, the factory ammo that is made today, but at the prices that we've come to, whoa, it's hard to spend that much to find out what's good as well.
Yeah, we ended up spending $450 in ammunition. I think we got 10 boxes of ammo. And luckily, it was split in, you know, like our cost was $225 per rifle because we had 2 rifles. But if you only have 1 rifle, it's still going to cost you the same, right? And again, so if anything, our viewers learned that, hey, if you're gonna buy, go try the good stuff, and if that doesn't shoot, you're probably gonna waste your time with everything else. So
yes, and seeing a test like that is so valuable. What you did, so that people understand that, you know, because so many guys go buy, you know, a box of core locks and chuck it through their gun. They're like, I'm not shooting good. Do I send it back to the factory? Like, do I just keep throwing money on ammo? Like, what do I do? And so it's valuable for people to see what they really should expect out of a hunting rifle. And I think you should expect, if you're buying cheaper ammo, to get not great results. I don't know that there's a particular brand, and I've tried a lot of factory ammo. I don't know that there's a particular brand that I would call, like, this is the super value bargain stuff that shoots great. I don't know that I've seen that. You know, a cheaper brand that just shoots just as good as the expensive stuff. Yeah.
And you know, a lot of people say, well, you know, it's comes down to the shooter. No. A lot of this has to be ironed out before you can even know if you're a good shooter. And then you fall into that cycle, right? Is it me, or is it the gun, or is it the ammo, or is it the scope? And that's, to me, that's the worst place you can ever be as a shooter, as a hunter, where your gun is shooting really big and you have no idea what's causing it.
Yep. That's a huge problem. You know, the worst place that happens is when somebody builds their first custom. So now that we have so many pre-fit barrels, everybody says, sweet, skip the gunsmith. For good reason, honestly. It's great. These pre-fit barrels are awesome. I use them. But let's say, okay, I grab a pre-fit barrel. I get a good action. I get a good trigger, get a good chassis, put it all together. Ching. You know, you saved up. This is expensive. Maybe these 4,000 in components. You put it all together and it doesn't shoot. Now what? Now what do you do at that point, right? And so it's difficult if you haven't worked through the steps on a lot of guns to get something to shoot.
And I don't know. I mean, I it's hard for me to evaluate something like that because I've been shooting for so long, and I mean, I build my own rifles and do all my own barrel work. I mean, I do everything, do my own ammo, hand loading, everything. And it's hard for me to go back and remember what it was like. I mean, I still do, but obviously everything has changed now, right? And I don't know how much better things have gotten, but a lot of people kind of fall for that, this half MOA guarantee, right? Or sub MOA, whatever, whatever the new word of the day is in marketing, and or long range rifle, this long range hunter, this long, and it's so confusing for a lot of people. And then they have an issue, right? Like you're talking about a mismatched reamer for the ammo, and they don't know what to make of it, and they have you and I know it's a mismatched reamer with the ammo. They don't even know what a reamer is most of the time.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's tough. And you mentioned the guarantees, which if we're talking about hunting rifles, almost all rifles come with a guarantee. It means nothing. It means
that's
nothing.
That's another key word.
Yeah,
guarantee.
I mean, right. Now, I do appreciate that the company at least says if you're unhappy with the accuracy, we're going to work with it. That's good. We want that, right? But what I've learned as I've talked in detail with a lot of companies is that usually means a 3-shot group. Well, you could take a gun that's shooting pie plate at 100 yards, and eventually you're going to get 3 shots under an inch. You just are, right? And so that doesn't mean anything to say that. And then you see some that say, 3/4 MOA guarantee, half MOA, and when we're talking about, let's see if I can say this right. We're a little bit of a generality, but you can make a gun, in fact, a lot of hunting rifles with even a lot of ammo, they're going to shoot 1 MOA. Like, pretty broadly, that's not terribly difficult to do. Pretty broadly, they can do that. To get any gun, especially a hunting rifle, that you could say is a true half MOA rifle, that, okay, maybe we have some groups over, but on average, this is going to produce half MOA groups. To any gun, at that point, you really need quality ammo. And the difference between going from 1 MOA to half is 90% ammunition. It's not that much about the rifle anymore. Has that been your experience?
Oh, yeah. So, going from 1 MOA to half MOA is it's quite easy. Like I said, we did it with those rifles. Like,
for you, yeah. For a hunting rifle, it's a job.
No. Those Needsmores. I'm telling you, we did the Needmore series, and it was really hard. It became hard to sell it because we were literally doing everything that I would do if I bought this rifle. Is like, okay, shoots 3.5. What do I have to look at first? Well, it's the stock. The stock is junk, right?
Yep.
Well, let's throw it away. Well, what if you bought a $600 rifle? Maybe you don't have the money to throw it away. Okay, well, here's how you fix it. And we made pillars, and we put in pillars, and we used JB Weld because, again, we didn't want to use the high-end bedding stuff, right? So we kept it as budget as possible. Of course, I say this as we had MDT mounts and rings on there, and we had a Collis 3-18 scope. So we had about a $4,000 setup. But so I say that just in case somebody's going to go check it out, understand the reason we did that is because we wanted to isolate the scopes. We wanted that to be
limit
solid.
Your variables. We're talking about the gun itself.
We wanted to limit the variables to only the gun. So anyway, because we did catch a little backfire on some of that.
Good one.
Because they're saying, well, it's supposed to be a budget build, and you got a $4,000 scope and rail system. Well,
I've done the same thing on YouTube for the exact same reason, and I heard the same complaints, and I was like, it was talking about the gun. I wanted to limit the variable.
Yeah.
Anyway.
So we did this, and we started with pillars and JB Weld, and again and we free-floated the barrel, sandpaper, and it was done. Like, that was the first step, and it was great. Like, it was no longer 3.5 MOA. It was like 1.25, I think, if I remember correctly. And then so then we kept one as it was, and we kept upgrading the other one. So then we threw it in an Oryx chassis, and man, it didn't really improve. I think it got it down to about 1 MOA. It made a slight improvement, but it was mainly because of handling. The follow-up shots were easier, but still, this is a very thin barrel. It was jumping all over the place, really heavy trigger. So I think the next thing that we did is I put in the lathe and I threaded the barrel, and I put on one of my tuner brakes. Well, that we were able to tune it down to about 5/8. Well, that's where the controversy came up. They're like, "Oh, it took me a long time to figure out this was just a commercial for your tuner brakes." And I'm like, "No, this is literally what I would do." And of course, anytime you do anything like that, it becomes like, well, was it the brake that did it, or was it the fact that you crowned it, or go back and do this? And I'm like, guys, I'm just showing you the process, right? But long story short, then we did the ammo test, and then we're like, okay, now we're going to hand load. Right? This is going to be the acid test to see how much more we can squeeze out of it. We couldn't. I mean, we could get some groups down into like 1/4 MOA, 3 shots, but again, it was not repeatable. So we called these rifles 5/8 MOA. We got a lot of groups under 1/2 MOA, but average, we were calling them about 5/8. Factory ammo, I mean, again, it was premium ammunition. Our hand loads, we couldn't even get it to behave any differently because I think we had already squeezed out as much as we could out of the barrel. At that point, I think it was the barrel because we even threw a $500 trigger, a Flavio Fare trigger in one of them, and still nothing. We threw in the David Tubb dual spring setup, nothing. But then we shot them at 1,000 yards and we're getting 8-inch groups. Like, hey, this is a perfectly good setup.
Right.
However, by the time we got it to that point, we had about $1,500 to $2,000 on the rifle. Would have been better off to just go buy a better.
Defeats well,
but that was
the
the whole
purpose
point
for the person, but it's so valuable for people to see that because then they know what steps can be taken and they know what they should be expecting. So it's really valuable content.
Yeah. So we said, look, if you want a 1 MOA rifle, go buy this thing, do the pillar bedding yourself, free float it, and for about $800, you got about a 1 MOA rifle.
Yep.
That's it.
But yeah, what I would tell people. Sorry, go ahead.
I said, but if you want a 1/2 MOA rifle, you're going to spend over $2,000, and you're still not going to get it there consistently. Like we did all that, and so yeah, 1/2 MOA is a really hard place to get to consistently. Now, 1/4 MOA, forget it. It's I mean,
in
you
a
can get
hunting
there.
rifle. Yeah, I did a video on the most accurate hunting rifles of all time, and I saw several comments that were like, "This is ridiculous. You should be able to get 1/4-inch groups and stuff." And I said, like, on a hunting rifle with a thin barrel and it's a lightweight rig, like, not really. Really, it's going to be tough to accomplish in a hunting rifle. If you get a hunting rifle that can consistently shoot anywhere near that 1/2 inch, you have an exception to the rule. That's an exceptional hunting rifle if you're near that 1/2 inch. Well,
the other thing that they put all the weight on the rifle in a sense of the rifle can't do it. Well, sometimes the shooter can't either. Actually, I'm going to say most of the time the shooter can't do it. And I'm not saying they're not good shots. I'm just saying the platform doesn't allow you to do it. So, like when we took that plastic Remington stock off and put it in a chassis, that rifle was much more comfortable to shoot. It was a lot easier to get stable. So the platform itself allowed us to shoot better, right?
Yes.
So a hunting rifle, you have limitations, right? Number one is lightweight. Like you don't want a 25-pound hunting rifle.
Nope.
You don't want a hunting rifle with a 10-round detachable mag. You know, you don't want. There's so many things that competition rifles, like I'm talking about a PRS rifle. In a PRS rifle, you want the weight, you want the light recoil. You don't want a hunting rifle if you're going after elk. You don't want it chambered in 6 dasher, right?
Yeah.
And it's gonna kick like crazy. So because it's gonna be a Magnum.
You have, like, this is I won't touch it because YouTube's rules if it's a stream, but that red one there, it's a Voodoo 22. So 22 LR, it weighs 20 pounds. 20 pounds on a 22 LR. If you put that sucker on a bipod, you literally can't feel that the shot goes off. You can't feel anything. Like your scope doesn't even vibrate, right? And so when I, go shoot with my kids or something like that, like it's hard not to shoot that well. I don't care, who you are. Like if we're on a bench rest, on that thing's on a bipod in the rear bag, like just pull the trigger. It's not hard. But when we're talking about a 300 Win Mag in a 6-pound hunting rifle and you're in an odd position in a hunting situation, now it gets real. It's going to depend a lot on the shooter.
You shooting off of shooting sticks, or you shooting off a bipod, but you have to elevate that bipod so you can shoot over brush, and you're having to raise. I mean, there's so much going on, and then you got adrenaline going on. Just so much that goes on that sometimes the shooter can't do it.
Yeah, and it, we all think we're the exception to it. A couple months ago, I missed a coyote at 175 yards. And I just think, like, how was that possible to miss the whole animal at 175 yards? And now, granted, a coyote, it has big fur, but actually the animals, it's pretty tiny in there. It's like a little rat living in a big furry body. But 175 yards, how could that happen? Right? I've been kicking myself for months over that. But man, when you're in a hunting situation, just all bets are off. It is different. It is a lot harder to make a shot that really should not be that hard. Yeah, coyotes is what got me interested into long range shooting originally, because they, I grew up ranching cattle, raising cattle and all. So there was always coyotes. Every time the cows were calving, there was coyotes everywhere, and we of course had to get rid of them. And I would always try to sneak up on them. And coyotes are pretty smart. They're really smart animals. And I thought, well, I'm smarter if I can just shoot them from farther away, because there was always that distance where I can get to here, but I can't make the shot. But if I get closer, they're going to run away. So I started shooting long range, and they're really hard to hit. Like I missed more coyotes than I missed anything else in my life. They're freaking hard to hit. Like, yep.
I don't know. Maybe it was my inexperience at the time, but they're hard to hit, man. To me, that's the hardest animal that I've ever hunted.
Yep, they move fast, and like I said, they look bigger than they actually are. There's not that much meat in that fur ball. And so, yeah, it's easy to happen. Now,
hogs, they're super easy because they move slow, and there's a lot of them. So if you miss one,
you'll probably hit another one. Yeah, you'll hit its brother.
You just shoot into the pile. With hogs, you shoot in the middle of the pile, and you're going to get something.
Yeah, that's right. And that's where that 8.6 Blackout. Man, I want to go hunt some hogs with 8.6 Blackout. That thing looks sweet. Or I think, lever action 45-70 would also be pretty dang fun on hogs. Last time I went with a 6.5 Creedmoor, and I've just been thinking like, that was just not masculine. Hunting hogs with a 6.5 Creedmoor. That was just not a good choice, man. You have an opportunity to do something cool, and you choose a 6.5 Creedmoor to hunt hogs with. It's sad. It's sad.
To a lot of people, 6.5 Creedmoor is the sexiest thing alive. Whatever. So I used to hunt. When I used to hunt, I had a 300 Win Mag, and I used to hunt South Texas. And there was tons of hogs and javelinas and everything. And that was before I learned about long-range shooting and target scopes and all that. So I was always looking for flat shooting. So I loaded 130 grain Barnes triple shocks at like 3,600 feet per second out of my 300 Win Mag.
Hello.
And that thing was awesome. It was amazing.
That's cool. Yeah, that's fun. I got some Sabos for a 300 Win Mag to neck it down to a 22 cal, just because I want to see if I can break the lab radar, see if I can hit the max velocity. By the way, did you see the FX chronograph at SHOT Show?
No.
Yeah, it looks pretty cool. As somebody who has fought with my lab radar for years, that thing looks pretty cool. So FX is an airgun company, really well known in the airgun space. and they're coming out with a lot more, broader varieties of things. Anyway, they have a new chronograph coming out, I think in April, that looks to fix all of the issues that I've had with LabRadar for so many years.
Is that the tubular looking thing, like a small tube?
No, it's the same kind of form factor as a LabRadar. It sits to the side. You don't have to connect anything to the barrel. But they're just, all the settings are gone. And they have promised me that it just records the velocity 100% of the time, and you don't have to tinker. And I said, I'll believe it when I see it, but it looks really cool.
You've heard the joke about the LabRadar. You know how they released the LabRadar Lite or whatever they call it?
Actually, no. Anyway,
so so it's a LabRadar Lite. I think that's what they call it. The point is, it doesn't have Bluetooth.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I do know that. Yeah.
So the joke is like, so it's not different than the other one. So there's no difference.
It's an incredible machine, but it just, I wish they would work on user friendliness of that machine a bit. Yep. Just a lot of settings you got to tweak in, and man, there are sometimes I'll go through 15 shots before it finally starts recording. And as somebody who shoots suppressed a lot, oh man, it's really.
Do you have a trigger for it?
Somebody sent me one. I wish I could give them a shout out. I can't remember the name. I'm gonna have to check it out. Somebody sent me one, and so I'm gonna definitely be trying that one because I have heard reports that improves it a lot.
Yeah, I didn't use the trigger for the longest time, and it's like finally I bought a trigger, and it's like finally. Now, there's the downside of the trigger. If you move the gun, it'll pick up. It'll try to pick up a shot, and it'll just register, but you can just delete those. But yeah, the trigger has made it much better.
Oh, that's good. I'll have to play with that more.
Suppressed, you have to put the chronograph in front of the suppressor for it to work.
Mm-hmm.
If you put it behind, it doesn't do very well.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'm hoping that one from FX fixes my issues because, oh man, sometimes I could just hurl that thing off a bridge.
The good thing about it is it's orange, so you can shoot it from far away.
That's right. I mean, in fairness, like I'm so glad it exists because it's nice to be able to do, your accuracy testing at the same time as the chronograph. Magneto speed's going to change your point of impact and stuff by adding that weight there. So I really am glad it exists. But I've talked to the company before and suggested could we maybe have a version 2? And I didn't. My feedback was maybe taken a little bit defensively, but anyway.
Well, their version 2 is a Lite, which is, they better do something, honestly, because it's a good system. It's just it's gonna fall behind really fast. I think it's already falling behind. Have you seen the Andy scan? Are you aware of the Andy scan? I think that's what it's called.
I don't know what that one is. No.
Dude, that thing is like a size of your cell phone, and you can set it off to the side, or you can attach it to the rifle, and it's a chronograph. It's a radar chronograph, but it's tiny, just like a cell phone.
Huh? Interesting. I'll have to check that out. And the accuracy is pretty good.
I don't have one. My friend F-Class John has one, and but, from what I hear, it's pretty good. The fact that it's so small. And
that's great.
Like my LabRadar. All right, let's bitch about LabRadar. Maybe they'll see this and update their stuff. So the majority of the box is the battery compartment. Yeah. And it drains batteries like nobody's business.
Yes, the battery's gone immediately.
So you have to use an external battery. Mm-hmm. So just give us one and just say, hey, you need an external battery because we use it anyway. And you can cut that LabRadar in half in size. Because again, the majority of the size of it is a place where you can put batteries into it.
Yeah, and that's the promise of this FX one is the battery lasts, like they said, measure it in weeks instead of days. They said really long battery life. It's about the same size as the LabRadar, but kind of the cover comes off and that becomes the base, so you don't need a separate tripod for it.
Okay.
Just sets right in there. so you don't have to dangle with that thing. And then there are like no settings on it. It does connect to your phone if you want, but the settings are just, it's just designed to actually trigger. And because it's an air gun company, it's supposed to trigger with everything, suppressed rifles. It's meant for quiet stuff. So anyway, I'm eager to see if it fulfills the promise because it sounds cool.
Yeah, now I have to look for it. Like, I got to go check it out.
I don't know that it's even online yet. The company is FX Outdoors. It's their new arm of FX Air Guns, and I believe it's going to be released in April. I showed it in my SHOT Show video, the accessories video. So anyway, we'll see. But it looked cool to me.
Well, anything that, if it works, it's cool,
Yep. Yep, that's right.
Yeah, it's so many, like I rely on chronograph so much because on my website I teach, like I teach all my, like how to reload and all that. And a chronograph is such a huge part of my process that I need something that reliable every time.
Yep.
That's the definition of reliable, right? But it's, some days, yeah. Some days it's yeah.
Yeah, and I will say that every once in a while I hear from somebody that says, I don't even know what you're talking about. My lab radar works just fine, and they set it up and it goes. Man, I just haven't had that experience, but some people have great luck with it. I'm glad it exists. I'm glad I own one, but I am ready for something new.
Well, and that's what I was saying. If they don't, hopefully they're already working on version. They need to be working on version 3 because they skipped 2.
Well, the other thing is it's frustrating behind. when you get to start using it, because like you look at the interface and there's like this icon with a computer on it, and I'm like, oh, okay, so is that like if I connect this to my computer? Oh no, that's like menu. It's like, wait, no, like settings is like a gear icon on every technology device ever, right? It just like it doesn't follow kind of those norms, and so it just takes a minute to get used to how to do it. But again, some people don't have any problems with it, and it works great for them. Yeah,
but anyway, when it was first available, I'm still using it. That is my main chronograph.
Yep.
I like to complain about it because I use it a lot, but I guess because I use it so much, I wish some things, especially the battery, like just cut the whole bottom off of that thing, make it super small, or not super small, but compared to that one, you can make it literally half the size, and it'll work just as good. Just get rid of the battery. Or you can actually, the battery that I have, the battery pack, it actually fits perfectly inside where the batteries go. Like if I just cut all that out, and I'm like, Lab Radar, you could have spent $20 on one of these, and then everybody would have been happy with the battery life. Because if you put one of those battery packs in, it'll last for a long time, a very long time.
It does.
But whatever.
Yeah.
What else are we going to complain about that we don't have any control over?
Hopefully not much. I think it's so awesome, all the new gear we have. I just got 2 new suppressors in this week. It took a year and 4 months to get them in because the local shop that the transfer was happening with forgot to call me when it came in. I was like, you've got to be kidding me. Anyway, so I got the Gunworks 6 and 22 Sparrow. I don't have any 22 suppressors, so that would be kind of fun. More just my plinker, but I'm interested in that Gunworks 6. The one that I want to get next is that Banish Backcountry. It's super lightweight, less than 6 inches. For me, for hunting application, man, it just looks perfect. So I definitely want to check that one out.
Do you have any like long range 22s? I guess your NRL would be considered long range.
Yeah, I haven't done NRL 22X, the one where you shoot further, just the regular NRL 22, so the longest distance. I think some of them go to like 140 yards, but most of the shots are under 100.
So 22 Plinkster and I were talking, and as you know, he likes 22s.
A little bit.
And so we pretty much came up with the idea that we're going to shoot 1,000 yards with a 22.
Can you?
Of course. Of course, Jim. Come on.
Will you hit dirt at 800 yards? Or do you have
If
to
you're
like
aiming at
mortar
dirt,
this sucker?
That's the point. So I've had Paul Phillips on my channel, on this podcast, who is the #1 ranked extreme long range shooter in the world. I've had Chase Stroud, who I don't know what his ranking is, but he's also a extreme long range guy. And so this is how it started. 22 Plinkster and I started talking about it, and like, yeah, because I shoot 1,000 yards all the time, and he shoots 22s. And we're talking about how Jerry Michalak shot 1,000 yards with a 9mm, and we're like, well, 22. Chase Stroud has done 1,200 with a 22. And I said, hey, we should do 1,000. So we throughout the podcast, we decided we're going to do it because that would be so cool. And
Can it be done with subsonic, or do you have to go supersonic?
No. Bro, we can do it with rocks. Just give me enough rocks.
No, a serious question. Can a subsonic 22 make it to 1,000 yards?
Yeah, of course.
Do you have to like get a running start?
Squeeze the trigger really hard. No, of course, but he actually gave me the drop for 1,000 yards. He said it was like 140 mils or something of that nature. No, this is not an easy task.
No, it's not.
Like you can't do it with a regular scope setup. You have to get like a Charlie.
Yeah.
You know what a Charlie is?
No, I don't.
Oh, okay. So a Charlie, I think it's called a Charlie tack or something. The point is, you mount it in front of your scope, and when you look through your scope, it has mirrors in there. So that's what you're seeing, an image, and this mirror goes in, and then it bounces down, and then it goes out the front again, right? Except in those mirrors, they're able to tilt the mirror a certain angle to give you more elevation, right? It's just an optical elevation, right?
Mm-hmm.
So you can get up to like 250 mils of elevation just using a Charlie. That's how the extreme long range guys do it without having to have this massive mounts on their scopes.
Wow.
Okay. So what's the next question? All right. If you do this enough, because you're aiming it down, right? Which then makes you point the barrel up. Well, if you're shooting that far, well, guess what? If you aim this low enough, you're going to see your barrel. Which happens. So then they have another thing that they put in front of the Charlie that goes in and it bends the image 90 degrees around the barrel. This stuff exists. This stuff is being used by extreme long range guys like on a regular basis. And I learned about it here on my podcast. Chase Stroud, go check it out sometime and watch that Charlie demonstration. It's so wild because it's so simple, really. They use mirrors to aim down and go around. And these guys are connecting at over 3,000, 7,000 yards, crazy distances. So
that's nuts.
For a 22, we're going to need that kind of stuff. So you can see this is not a simple, like, hey, we should go shoot 1,000 yards. It's going to require some work.
I'd say. So, well, that'd be really cool to see.
So the cool thing is I know the people that I can reach out to and say, hey, I need this, that, or the other. I also have a Voodoo with a 24-inch barrel, just a full-blown custom rifle. So that's done. I just need the rest of it, which is going to be the Charlie and the Terak and the whatever these things are called that bend your image. And and we're going to do it for sure.
Well, that sounds really cool. That sounds cool. You mentioned so you're going to use your Voodoo for it?
Yeah.
Okay. My house I actually bought from the owner of Voodoo.
From Paul?
When I bought the house, and then there was like a paper left in a closet, and it said Voodoo Firearms, and I was like, wait a minute. I had no idea. Yeah. They're cool guns. 22 is so much fun. I like shooting the NRL 22, and I'm not good. I lose bad in those competitions, but I have a good time. That is such a great competition. It's so approachable. I go with my teenage son, goes and shoots it with me, and it's so approachable. To be able to do. You don't have to worry about reloading. I just get Lapua Center X ammo, chuck it in my gun, and I'm ready to go. It's just, it just makes it a lot more fun to go shoot than when you have to load up 200 rounds and drive 4 hours to a weekend competition and stuff. I like just the 1 hour morning factory ammo. It's a good time.
Yeah, that makes it way easier, doesn't it?
Yep.
What was I going to say? The 22s, and I keep saying this. Like I've been talking about. I've been talking about it nonstop for the last few episodes. Or the podcast that I've done is air rifles. That's what I saw at SHOT Show that really caught my attention, and it's gonna have to happen. I already ordered it. It's actually ready. They called me, but I can't pick it up.
What'd you get?
I got the Air Force. I don't even know what it's called, but it's their bench rest model, and
Sweet.
It's on, baby. It's on. But it's expensive. So the rifle, you got.
Yep.
I'm gonna have to do an episode on what it costs to buy an air rifle, because this is a top of the line, full blown custom. You have to buy the rifle, but then you have to buy the compressor and the tank, and that in itself is expensive because the compressors that they use are freaking like 4,000 psi or something crazy. It's not your just regular compressor they can air up the tire of your car with.
Right. And a lot of people, because the compressors are expensive, $1,000 for a compressor, a lot of people just take their tank and just go to some local scuba shops or paintball shops will have, the right equipment to be able to fill your tank. Then you take your scuba tank home and you can fill your gun a whole bunch of times with that and then go back to the shop. So there's hassle to be had, but it is nice to be able to shoot 100 rounds. And I mean, once you have your compressor and tank, essentially free. I mean, the cost of a pellet is basically nothing. It makes it fun. And NRL 22 now has that air gun division, which I haven't shot yet, but that sounds really cool.
Yeah. The closest place for me to get that done, my tank filled, would be like over an hour away. So it's not. I'm gonna have to get an air compressor.
Not gonna work for you.
But anyway, it looks like a lot of fun. But they're so powerful. I didn't realize they can outperform a 22. Yeah,
I think Keith Warren on his YouTube channel, he's taken big African game with an air rifle. Crazy stuff.
Yeah, it's going to be crazy. But anyway, what I'm excited about now is that 1,000-yard 22 shot, because it's going to happen. You watch.
That sounds fun. You got to try it with. Tell me what would happen if you went with subsonic ammo.
It's going to have to be subsonic.
What kind of drops you'd have?
Oh, it'd
have to be?
I mean, because he talked about Center X and Midas and all that. Isn't that subsonic stuff?
Yeah, that's all subsonic, yeah.
Yeah. I mean, no, you don't. I mean, in reality, how much more performance can you get out of a 22 with 50 or 100 more feet per second? It's not really.
Yeah, it's true. I guess at 1,000 yards, I'll take what I can get.
But
but that Center X stuff is great, man. I just only shoot Center X for NRL 22. It just works great.
Yeah, the whole 22 revolution is happening in a sense of I saw late turned 22 bullets at SHOT Show. Talk about
that's a new one.
Oh, you never heard? Oh, dude, I saw them and they look crazy. They're super long. They're all solids. They're late turned, and I've heard of people actually reloading 22s. They sell. Again, I've never even looked into it, but I don't want to look into it because I just know I'm going to get in trouble in a sense of I'm going to want to try this, right? But
no, it's the advantage of 22. You don't have to.
Oh, well, that's my point. And now they're doing it because so they have, I think they have extreme long range 22s. And that's where, like I said, Chase Stroud, he shot 1,200 yards with the one the other day. And when I saw that, I thought, this is nuts. I have to do it. so
that's cool.
So now,
I wonder what the max. I wonder what the max distance is then with the 22 subsonic. Like, how far could it actually go before you're just hitting dirt?
well, so this is the thing, right? We're gonna shoot more dirt than metal. That is a given. I'm just gonna have to go in knowing this. But if you hit it, and we discussed this, like, is it luck or is it skill, right? Because if you shoot 100 rounds at it and you hit it, is it skill?
Eventually you can walk anything in.
Right.
Yeah.
But I think it'd be cool to see what we're getting ourselves into. But like I said, I'm going to cheat. And originally it was going to be a competition. I said, nah, it can't be a competition. We need to do it together because I know a lot of extreme long range guys. So I would just call them up and say, hey, get over here and walk me. Because those guys shoot 7,000 yards, right? Exhibition.
Yeah.
But still. I said, I can just call these guys and they'll walk me in, right? But I don't want to do that. I want it to be a joint venture to where he and I can learn something from this and then share it and say, okay, this is what we've learned, right? Like, I know some enough, I think, to get me there just from the guests that I've had on this podcast. But if I had to do this on my own, dude, crazy.
It's a job, yeah. That's a job.
It is a job. Like, you
task.
can't even get a regular rifle to do that. Like, you can't do it with a regular off the shelf. Even you have a pretty nice one, that Voodoo, with a nice chassis and a nice scope. That can't do it because you'll limit out the scope. In 1,000 yards doesn't even seem that far, but with a 22, yeah.
Yep.
So anyway,
that's for sure. Well, it's interesting when we talk about, long distances. I hear frequently from people that have never shot more than 100 yards, and they're really into guns. Because, if you live in New England where they're just, the trees are just thick and land is expensive, like, man, just finding a range to shoot real long range is pretty tough to do. Where I live, I could drive 5 minutes, be in the desert, and I could shoot as far as I want, just 5 minutes from my house. So it is different talking about distances. You said like 1,000 yards, not that far. You're used to shooting it all the time, but it's interesting what a long distance is to different people, because to some people, you shoot on a tree stand, hunting whitetail or whatever, and you're never really going to shoot past 100 yards.
Yeah, that's true. I mean, and oftentimes I forget that simply because I shoot 1,000 like all the time. And I mean, literally, like, I only shoot at 100 nowadays to sight in a rifle. That's it, but yeah, like, I remember when 100 yards was all I knew, because, you go to just about any shooting range, it's going to be 100 yards. Some of the big ones will have 200, but that's about it, especially around here. But in most hunting rifles, you don't really have to shoot long range, right? 100 past 100 yards. Most everybody, especially here in Texas, they set up a deer feeder. They literally walk it off and they set it up at 100 yards. Everything's calibrated for 100. But
yeah, and if you're doing that kind of hunting, I get a lot of questions like, what cartridge is best for whitetail, and it's like, if we're talking about over a feeder and you're making a 75-yard shot, like, what doesn't work? That's a better question. What doesn't work than what does? Like, it won't matter. Shoot a 308, shoot 30 out 6, shoot 7 PRC, shoot 6.5 Creedmoor. The deer will be dead. Yeah, the deer will definitely be dead. And so I get it if, somebody says, hey, I want a gun that I can hunt whitetail deer with and take out to the range and shoot long distance, and, just people want a versatile rifle. That's great. But I think certainly in situations like that, it doesn't matter a whole lot. Situation, I think, changes quite a lot. If we're talking about going out west, and especially if elk are on the menu, they're like, oh, we got to make sure we're fitting the needs of that cartridge to the cartridge, because you can get some significant advantages by switching cartridges if we're talking about that.
Let's dissect that right quick, because that is, you touched on something very important. Because I get that often. People reach out to me and they go, hey, I have this rifle that I want to buy. Well, what do you think I should get it in? They have it in, I don't know, 6.5 PRC, 6.5 Creedmoor, and they want my input. And I said, well, what are you using it for? I said, well, whitetail. I'm like, what do you have now? They're like, well, I got a 243. That's it. Just shoot that. Well, I want to shoot elk someday. Okay, well then neither of those two that you asked about, the 6.5 Creed or the 6.5 PRC, are gonna be a good elk rifle. They will work. However,
I agree.
I would not be my first choice if you're gonna have a dedicated rifle. I said, you already have a 243. Use that for deer, and if you go elk hunting, then use your bigger rifle for that. Well, I kind of want to shoot the same rifle for both. Well, then don't buy the Magnum yet until you're really going to go hunt elk, and then you can sell your 243 if you want or whatever. But the point is, they look at ballistic tables all day long, and I ask them, what is your maximum range? Even the ones that say, well, I'm going to go hunt elk. I said, okay, what is your maximum range? Well, I don't know. I don't know what I'm going to see the elk at. I'm like, no. You got to work it backwards. You have to give yourself a maximum range, and you have to be very good. You have to prove to yourself that you can actually shoot and execute at that range 100% of the time before you even go hunting. Now, whatever that range is, then that's going to dictate what cartridge. Not dictate, but it's going to give you an outline as to what will work. For example, if your maximum range that you give yourself is 250 yards, at 308, 30-06, maybe not a 308, but a 30-06, 270, any of those will work. You don't even need a Magnum, right? Because the energy it's all about energy, right? How much energy is left when it gets to the animal? Energy is what kills. And do the math. If like for me, myself, even though I'm a long-range shooter, my range was 500 yards, and it still is, because especially like elk or deer. Now if I'm shooting hogs, I will shoot at them as far as I can see them. I don't care, because whatever, right?
Lob it at them.
Yeah, but that's now you get into the ethics of hunting, which is a whole nother topic. But what do you think? Like at what point would you say you need a new rifle?
Well, okay, nobody needs a new rifle. You can always make it work, right? What I would agree with you about the 6.5s. For elk-sized game, I don't love it. I hunted blue wildebeest in South Africa with 6.5 PRC. Ooh, they all died, but not in the way that I wanted to. And so that was a little learning experience for me. And that's where, I had kind of been in the camp of like, are we kind of kidding ourselves with the real big things? If the shot goes in the right place, does it really matter? And that's the hunt where I said, okay, it matters. The shot went like, you could draw a Sharpie marker on the exact spot. That's where you'd want it to be. And it just took too long for that thing to expire. It should not have been like that. Anyway, so lesson learned. And so I do like bring in enough power. You want just any advantage on damage we can do, I'm going to take on a big animal like that. What I would say is, like me, I missed it 175 yards on a coyote. When you're in a hunting position, things change. And so we want to minimize error as much as possible. And so even if you're not ever going to be the guy who takes the 700-yard shot on an elk, like let's say you're making the 300-yard shot, well, if you're shooting 7 PRC, you got maybe 1 inch better on your wind at 300 yards. Well, I'll take the inch, like everything you can to minimize the errors. And so I really like the really flat shooting stuff for hunting because it minimizes the error even slightly but sometimes slightly makes a big difference between hitting long and just barely in the guts. So I like taking every advantage as I can, but clearly you don't need that. You can go use your 30-06 and it's going to work great. But if you are that guy that wants to get every advantage you can, then yeah, I mean, it's a real measurable advantage.
Yep. Very well said. So what's your next hunt?
I think I'm going to go back to South Africa this summer. Looking forward to that. It's so fun. So fun hunting in South Africa. You know, I don't know. People might be mad at me for saying this, but I'll say it anyway. Whenever I travel around and I look at hunting, or especially around the world, but even around the country, the more private land there is and hunting is allowed, the more animals there are. If there's a lot of public land, even if hunting's allowed, there's not as many animals. You know, when I drive through Texas down an old dusty road, you can't help but pass by 20 whitetail. You can't help it. But, you know, you go up in Utah into the mountains, which should be like perfect environment, and you could camp there for a week and maybe not see a deer. It can happen. And so, I don't know, I'm amazed as I travel around that if there's one hunting allowed, you know, I lived 2 years in Brazil, never once saw a big game animal. And I drove all the time through farms out in the middle of nowhere. Never once saw a single deer. And it's lush. There's plenty of water. There should be big game animals everywhere. And there is zero. There's no hunting allowed in Brazil. There's no value to it. And so if that deer's killing crops, what's the hunter going to do? He's going to get 200 pounds of steaks. He's going to poach, right? There's no value to it otherwise. It's ruining his crops. So there's a huge advantage to hunting. But the thing that I keep seeing is the more private land and hunting, the more animals there are as well. So I'm not saying that really for any reason. You know, I'm certainly not saying let's sell all our public land. I guess I wonder about sometimes all the money we pour into conservation and how much tags are becoming and stuff, when it's like, how come on private land there's really, I don't know. I wonder about that. I just stirred a hornet's nest. I didn't even mean to, but I wonder about that sometimes.
Yeah, well, like you said, you know, here in Texas, I mean, they're racing deer every year. You know, they make them bigger, stronger, whatever, you know, because hunters will pay to hunt them. And we are getting lazier as a society. So, you know, if you can just pay the money, go sit in the blind and shoot a big buck at 100 yards, then you have it mounted, give the meat away or whatever you want to do, have your big antlers that you can show off, take a picture for social media, and you're done. Off you go, right? But I think there's still some value to the public land. It is becoming harder, so you have to work a lot harder at it to harvest a deer or an elk. I went 3 or 4 times elk hunting, never got one, public land. And it was just because, like you said, they were nowhere to be found. Maybe it's a myth. Maybe they don't exist.
Yeah, and to be clear, I love the mountain hunt. I love the backpacking and getting into the middle of nowhere and stuff. It's awesome. I want that, and I want public land forever. I love it. I spend a ton of time doing that. But I guess I just wonder from the biology standpoint, why can't we get more animals on that public land? Like, how come we're spending so much on this and we're just not seeing nearly the animals that it seems like there could be? I don't know. That's what I wonder about. It's just a question I have.
Yeah, it's like those guys, the hunting public. You know who that is?
Yeah, I do.
They seem to find them. I can never find them.
They find them. Yeah, they're definitely out there. But it just seems like, you know, you go to South Africa and it's just dry as a freaking bone out there. Like, you think like the forest in Utah is so rich for wildlife compared to that habitat. And yet you stand on a hillside in South Africa and you might see 15 different species of animal, and like literally you may see 100 different big game animals from that hilltop. It's incredible on private land. And so I guess I just wonder, are we being good stewards of what we have? Like, are there things we need to fundamentally change about how we're managing our animals on public land? Because I just wonder, when you see that on private and you say, it seems like this is a lot better territory for the animals, why don't we see that?
Are you
Especially
saying the government? Are you saying the government is not doing as good a job as they could? That would be the first time. That would be the first time.
This has never happened before. They're good at everything else they do. Anyway,
public land is an oxymoron.
I'm not trying to throw stones because I don't have the answer. I really don't. But it's just something that I would love a good explanation of. The other thing is, looking at hunting laws is really frustrating to me. I have a son who just barely turned 12 a couple weeks ago. My son has probably killed over 20 big game animals before his 12th birthday. We've gone to Alaska, we've gone to Texas, we've gone to South Africa, we've traveled around, and he's got to hunt, and he's awesome that he got to do that. But in his home state of Utah, it wasn't legal for him to hunt until his 12th birthday. Kids killed 20 big game animals, but you can't hunt until you're 12. It's like, what the crap? What are we trying to... Do you want kids to be playing Pokemon all day? Is that the goal? Why in the world wouldn't you leave that up to the parents to choose that when it's the right time for them to go hunting? And sometimes they add these like mentored huntings where it's like, well, if dad draws a tag, he can choose to give it to the kid. It's like, that's a fine step. But like, why can't the kid get his own tag? Like, why... The kids should get the tags before anybody else draws. We should give the tags to the kids. That seems like such a no-brainer. And so it's so weird when I see fish and game agencies clamping down on so many rules that like seem to be the opposite of what we as a hunting community would probably want, right? Like, I think I could get pretty broad support for saying that parents should choose when their kid's old enough to go hunting and to choose to take them out and spend some time in the wilderness. I don't think that'd be hard to convince people in our community of. And so how does Fish and Game get away with some of this stuff? I don't know.
Well, as we discussed already, they're not very good at managing or even anyway, whatever. It's there's so many laws that I don't understand, and I'm not gonna get into it, okay, because we don't have nearly the time, but like the whole brace law thing, right? The arm brace but yeah, it's we just got to keep fighting the good fight, man.
Yeah, that's right. And, sometimes I get all riled up with different things. But in the end, like, I love everything about guns. I want to learn it all. I want to shoot it all. I enjoy it all. And so we can't let the negative stuff kind of overpower us. And it's getting harder to do, especially if you're a hunter, because people that have elk hunted the same place with their family for 20 years suddenly just can't get any tag at all to go out this fall, And so times are definitely changing. And so I hope we can make the kind of changes we need so that people can just keep enjoying the outdoors lifestyle that we like.
Yep. Well, you need to come over to Texas sometime and we can shoot 1,000 yards.
Absolutely. I love Texas. I was actually born in Texas, but I haven't lived there in a long time.
Wow. Anyway, well, good stuff, man. Thanks for being here. I really, really enjoyed it. Keep hammering. Keep doing those awesome videos that you do. Very engaging. I love it. Like I said, come out sometime and we'll put you behind a target rifle and you can shoot some sub half MOA groups at 1,000 yards. Okay, lost him. Well, he's gone. We lost him. All right, that's all I have. Keep them centered.